I believe we are live now. And there's Angela. Hello. And got one more minute. We're waiting for Alan. I haven't heard anything from Alan. But we do have quorum, so that's good.
Am I right, Marissa, in that Alan said he was maybe going to not be able to attend the next meeting at the last meeting?
I don't recall. Did he? Does anyone else recall that?
He wasn't able to make the last meeting, but I don't remember hearing anything about this one.
Okay. So we'll just make a note. Well, he might join us. So it is 3 o'clock. We shall begin. So welcome everyone to the Parks Advisory Committee meeting, to all our members, to staff, to councillors, and our presenters, as well as those who may be watching now and in the future. Welcome. It is now 3 o'clock, call to order. And before we start, we will take a moment of reflection just to get ourselves prepped, ready, and fully present for today's agenda. Okay. And I hope everyone is feeling great. Today's agenda looks very interesting, and very excited to hear from summaries from Rod regarding the McCarroll Park Master Plan, as well as a presentation with the Waterfront strategy. But to start, is there any conflict of interest that anyone would like to declare, either now or later? That's okay too. And for those watching, I see no hands. Oh, just a note. Oh, Alan has joined us. Hello, Alan. And Victoria will be joining us shortly. She's just running a little late, and we do have quorum, so we will continue. To start, we have a presentation regarding the Meaford Waterfront strategy from Tatham, Envision Tatham. So we'd like to welcome them. And I believe they're being set up. Looks very exciting. This is phase 3 and 4, I believe. And I see we've got Michael and David. Hello. And you guys feel free to unmute.
There you go.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Perfect. So I'm Michael Cullip from Tatham Engineering, and with me is David Wood from Envision Tatham. So Tatham Engineering is a civil engineering consulting firm. Envision Tatham landscape architecture and site development. So the combination of the two firms lends itself quite nicely to the development of this particular project from both the engineering and the streetscape parkscapes perspective. So next slide, please. So what we wanted to achieve today is just to revisit the background behind the Waterfront Strategy Master Plan, recognizing that it is somewhat, not so much dated, but it was completed a number of years ago. And then what the purpose of our project, of our assignment is with the municipality. We'll speak to task 1, which is the project startup and some of the issues or the items that we want to bring to your attention and perhaps seek some feedback and some input on. And then we'll speak to the remaining tasks just to give you an idea as to what our program entails and how we're going to go about helping the municipality achieve the goal and vision for this waterfront parcel. And then certainly dialoguing any questions. So the next slide, please. And then you can skip right to the next one as well. So the master plan itself, the intent and the objective was really to look at the harbor and the waterfront areas and try to come up with a development plan that can be implemented by the municipality that would help revitalize the harbor and the immediate areas, and providing obvious economic and tourist benefits to the municipality, and obviously also accommodating the demands of the residents, recognizing that the waterfront does have a number of users. The idea is to try to encapsulate or capture as many uses as possible, to hence increase the use of the lands and the significance and success of them. The next slide, please. So as part of that master planning process, there was a significant public consultation program completed by the previous consultant throughout the process, and that included key stakeholder interviews, a number of community surveys at different points. There were design charrettes in order to seek some public input and opinion as to how things should be realized, council briefings, and an open house. So it was really through that process that the design team was able to collect the necessary input, put it all together in the basis that they understood it, and then translate that into a concept plan that is the basis for our subsequent work. Next slide, please. And through that public process and through that consultation process, not only with the stakeholders, but also the municipality, the master plan established a number of guiding principles. And I won't go through all the details, but suffice to say that these guiding principles are essentially the backbone to the master plan, and they have subsequently been adopted or carried forward into the municipality's official plan with respect to the development of the waterfront lands and the harbor lands. So in essence, they've created the guidelines to be employed in the future planning and the future development of these lands. And so it's certainly our duty when we look at how we're going to translate the concept plan for the master plan into reality, into engineering drawings, and then into a construction program eventually. It's our duty to respect these principles and to employ them through our programming as necessary, recognizing that we need to take that concept plan through perhaps a more scrutinized engineering and design perspective, getting into the details, into the fence corners, but still wanting to respect and maintain these guiding principles. So that's really the objective from our perspective, is to achieve these principles and realize the benefits and the desire of the municipality as it relates to the master plan and the waterfront lands. Next slide, please. And you can carry to the next. So the purpose of our specific assignment with the municipality is to do just that, is to continue the evolution of the waterfront strategy and master plan and take that concept plan and, as I said, evolve it into engineering drawings for implementation. And our focus is not so much on the entire waterfront area, but rather we'll be looking at zone 3, which is immediately adjacent to the waterfront on the east side. So that's what's deemed the parklands and pedestrian beautification and ecological enhancement. So the idea is to maximize the amount of green space and the natural space and really accommodate pedestrians and park users within that zone. And then zone 4, perhaps as equally as important, is the provision of appropriate vehicular parking and circulation improvements. Obviously, we need to have visitors be able to access the park, and many of them will drive, and then recognizing that the waterfront has the boat launch and is used by many users in that respect, and we need to accommodate their parking needs, and that includes the boat launch and parking with vehicles with trailers as well. So trying to enhance and develop both of those zones simultaneously, given that there is a little bit of a competing interest, but also certainly very complementary between the two. Next slide. So some of the improvements over existing conditions that were identified in the master plan speak to improving the gateway at Bridge Street. So prepare more of a prominent feature such that the users, when they enter the harborfront lands, that they really recognize that they are going into a different zone. They're going into an area that is really going to provide opportunities for them. So improving the pedestrian connectivity both to and within the waterfront lands, as I mentioned, will look to expand the green space and the naturalization within it, really create a true natural park, and then better definition of how vehicles are going to circulate within the park and how they're going to park at the end of the day when they need to. Next slide, please. So as part of our project startup, our task 1 was to really look at the information available. And you can jump to the next. Look at the information available, reach out to stakeholders again. Now, we are not undertaking the same stakeholder consultation program that was undertaken as part of the master plan, but notwithstanding, given the passage of time, we did want to reach out to obviously the municipal staff and departments, a number of interest groups as noted, and then the approval authorities and the government agencies that ultimately will provide the necessary permits and approvals, and make sure that the guidelines and the concept plan as developed and the evolution of such is still in line with what the needs of the stakeholder groups are. So we have reached out to a number. We are in process of soliciting some of that input now, and we'll continue on with that, and we'll carry forward that input through our design process. But again, the idea is not to go back to square one and start the design process all over again, but we recognize that a significant process has been undertaken with significant consultation, and that is our starting point, is that concept plan. And we just want to make sure that we're refining it and realizing its potential. The next slide, please. So in reviewing the background information, what we've been able to do is look at the concept plan as prepared and then look at the existing conditions, and we've undertaken a topographic survey of the area, and we were able to overlay the two. And what we've realized are there are a number of areas that will require some refinement as compared to what currently exists and what was illustrated through the concept plan. And we've identified these 4 different areas. So what we are seeing here is the concept plan overlaying on the topographic survey. So the black lines are survey lines and or property lines, and the colored diagram is the concept plan. We'll go to the next slide, please. And this is more so an overlay of existing conditions. The aerial photo underneath, again, with the topographic survey and the property lines, and just to give you a better appreciation and understanding for what it is that we are starting with. Okay, the next slide. So when we look at these refinement areas, again, we understand that the work as part of the strategy of the strategic master plan was kind of setting the framework and the overall approach, and it is our objective to tweak that and refine that, and as I said, translate that. So in particular, the area of the Coast Guard, you can see that the concept master plan encroaches within the Coast Guard areas. So the red line as defined represents the limit of the Coast Guard property. And so it's obvious that the concept plan has parking encroaching within that area. And then the black dash line represents a pedestrian corridor also through the area. So again, we'll look at what these objectives are, and certainly in speaking with the municipality, I think it's understood that the property lines of the Coast Guard property are in fact fixed. It's really non-negotiable. So the concept plan will be refined in this area to ensure that pedestrians and vehicles respect that property line. Next, please. As we proceed westerly to the area of the boat launch. Again, the other refinement that we want to seek some input on is the placement of the historic ship that's in the park now. And again, the concept plan has a pedestrian corridor through it. So we want to ensure that is appropriately considered, relocated as necessary, or conversely, the plan is modified to accommodate. The other consideration, obviously, with the boat ramp is the need to ensure that vehicles with trailers intending to launch boats and retrieve boats can do so in an appropriate manner, can do so without significant impact to pedestrian traffic, and that they have ample parking opportunities within the area. So we will ensure from an engineering perspective that the adjacent parking areas and circulation systems will accommodate all vehicle types, including those with trailers. In recognizing that the boardwalk cannot go across the boat launch, there is a need to provide some type of pedestrian facility bisecting the parking and bisecting the boat launch maneuvering areas So we need to ensure that that is done in a safe and appropriate manner for all users. Next slide, please. As we move towards the south limit of the parking area, what we've identified again with the red line is the limit of private property. So there are 3 parcels across that south limit that are currently under private ownership. And again, with the concept plan, you can see how that parking lot and that road encroach within those 3 parcels. So we've brought that to the attention of the municipality, and the municipality is having discussions with those property owners to try to establish how we can best move forward and accommodate the desires of the residents, or sorry, of the property owners, and also that of the concept plan itself. Okay, the next slide, please. And similarly, as we move towards the gateway, again, the black lines are reflective of what is currently there, and you can see the concept underneath. So the gateway does undertake a significant transformation and change in configuration. The internal road coming into the waterfront area is going to be shifted towards the east. And there are potential implications of that in the sense that the red line as denoted is what we would consider the top of a ridge. And you can see how close the lines are immediately adjacent to the ridge. Well, those are the grade lines as we go down. So there's a significant grade difference between the existing road and the top of that ridge. And that's probably what's dictated the placement of that road currently. So any relocation of that road, any shifting of that further to the east, which is really being done to try to maximize the green space between it and the water, could potentially have implications on the grading through that area and the need for additional engineering solutions, whether that be a retaining wall or some other type of engineered facility. And again, we want to try to minimize any potential impacts to existing buildings, existing properties, and existing vegetated or treed areas to the extent that we can. So again, that's an area that we'll have to look further to and try to understand how we can best accommodate. Okay, the next slide, please. So what we're showing here is really just an initial concept, trying to identify and alleviate some of these concerns to the extent that we can. Again, this is very preliminary in nature, but I think it is a natural progression from the concept plan as prepared to how we can move forward. The blue lines are showing what we believe are the key pedestrian corridors, and then the remainder is obviously a parking and circulation area. So we've tried to streamline the process, streamline the method of circulation and access to the boat launch, making sure that there's ample opportunity, respecting the property lines of the Coast Guard, respecting the existing Coast Guard ship in the park areas, and then ensuring that pedestrians and vehicles can both be accommodated in an appropriate manner. And also trying to soften the overall impacts of having a large parking lot in the middle of the park. So again, you'll notice that we do also encroach into those properties to the south. So should those properties not become available during the process, then we would simply modify this plan accordingly. And then as we move out towards the gateway, the main entrance to the park, we'd look at continuing that access road and trying to minimize any potential impacts that may result because of the grading. So again, this is just a preliminary refinement option and is intended just to illustrate that there are certainly solutions to some of these challenges that we've involved or that we've identified. And we'd certainly like to receive some input or direction from the committee as to how best we might tackle some of these challenges. Okay, the next slide, please. You can jump to the next one. So that's really the task one through our study, and it was really through the completion of the background reviews and the investigations that we've identified these challenges. So following the resolution, or at least having some idea as to the direction that we should follow, we'll undertake some additional technical investigations with respect to the engineering backgrounds and supporting requirements. And then as we move forward into tasks 3 and 4, will prepare a preliminary design of the overall Zone 3 and Zone 4 area document and then report. And then that's where we would be going to having a public information session where we can present those concepts and really see how the evolution of the master plan has occurred into the concepts that we're showing. Subject to any commentary provided, we'll look to finalize the design reports and then moving into Zone 3 into the 60% design of tasks 6, 7 through 8. So again, we're starting with a preliminary design for zones 3 and 4, and then advancing the Zone 3, which is the park area, to the 60% stage. And then it's understood that the municipality would continue beyond that to refine and finalize that design, perhaps closer to the time of implementation. Okay, next slide, please. So that concludes what we wanted to bring forward to the committee for your information and for your consideration. As I said, we're just kicking off this project. The idea being collecting all the information so that we can make informed decisions as we move forward. And some of that informed information, I think, has to come from the committee with respect to the direction that we would move forward to in solving some of these challenges.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. And Victoria has joined us. Welcome. Anyone have, actually, I have a question and I'll open it up to everyone else. Maybe I missed it. Did you have a timeline on, I see you've laid out, so well done. Thank you so much. A lot of work and exciting ideas, actually. Yeah, a timeline on your suggested tasks that you are.
Yes, we do. Let me just pull that up. I don't have it in front of me, but.
Or maybe like a work back schedule. When were you wanting to do
yeah, so
the public information session, for example? I don't know.
Right. So we had initially laid out a program that was to start in March and then would end in August of this year. So I believe we're a little slow getting out of the gates,
Okay.
but I believe that refers to 1, 2, 3, 4, about a 6-month program, and then perhaps another month or so after that to go through the detailed designs and the drafting of the documents. So the public information session that we were projecting would be in the middle of summer, most likely early August. That was predicated on being able to move directly from that concept plan into some of our designs.
Okay.
However, with these challenges, I think we need to revisit that schedule with the municipality and see how best we can first satisfy those challenges and then take that next step to the public. So it would most likely be into the early fall.
Okay. All right. And anyone have any questions before we, yes, Angela.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for members of PAC to take a guided tour. I think there's a lot of information here, and I think it would be a really good opportunity if we could walk through the park physically and ask our questions there and really understand the initial concepts and the challenges while physically in the park.
I guess I can ask that. It certainly wasn't the intention of staff or the steering committee to have the Parks Advisory Committee tour the space, especially with the consultant. It's not something that was developed within their plan or within their pricing. Ultimately, I guess, you know, the members of the Parks Advisory Committee are kind of getting a sneak peek to some of this stuff and what the challenges are. So you can tour the space at your leisure between now and when we actually have the Public Information Center, and any questions that you would have at that stage of the game, you know, could be brought up at that time, you know, as part of the standard PIC process.
Okay, great. Thanks, Darcy.
All right, thank you. Annalie, did you have a question or was that, okay, I see Harley.
Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Michael. Now, this question involves Mr. Chapman and Mr. Willis, for that matter, too. But through you, too, Michael, the municipality is attempting to install new fuel tanks at the harbor for the benefit of our boaters, and I'm just wondering. I'm hoping you are aware of that, and that you will be able to fit them somewhere in your new design.
Absolutely. We were made aware of those plans, and we certainly will be working with the municipality to establish the most appropriate location and context of the objectives of the park.
Okay, great. I have a question too. Has there been any discussion or thought towards a storage area for residents' boats, whether it's kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, canoes? I know that Toronto Harbourfront has recently made plans to add it to theirs, and with everyone, a lot of sup boards and kayaks, everyone's going outside paddling, and it would be amazing to have one here in Meaford as well and have that incorporated.
I would say at this point, we've not been aware of that need, but certainly as we are in the early process of our project, I think this kind of input is exactly what we are looking for with respect to some of the ideas, and perhaps how some of these additional elements that have only come about over the course of the last few years really can be implemented moving forward, or at least considered moving forward.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Angela and Victoria.
I'm just wondering if there is any intention to add any playground features or any kind of children's playing features into these concepts.
David Wood, would you care to address that one?
I think I think the answer to that, from our perspective, our mandate in this project is to take the designs that were developed through the Waterfront Master Plan, our Harbourfront Master Plan, and sort of land the ideas into something that can be built. So understanding that there was a fairly extensive consultation process, we're always a little hesitant on changing the programming of the spaces that were developed through that process, because we're assuming at this stage that it represents kind of the general consensus that was developed through public consultation and approved by council. So I realize master plans evolve and needs change, but at the moment our mandate is focused on the elements that are represented in that plan, and I think that if there were going to be new objectives added to that, we would obviously be open to considering them, but at the moment they're not kind of being factored in. I don't think it's our role at this point to be sort of dreaming up new ideas unless we receive that firm direction from the municipality that's the desired part of this process. But not sure if that answers the question or not, but
I think I'll just step into and just let the committee know that there will still be extensive development of the David Johnson Park. There's a large chunk of property that's effectively undeveloped from what's there, because it goes right down to the far road allowance in front of all the Stanley Knight property. Some of it's not all that wide, but I think there's a clear thought that play structure could eventually find itself within that location somewhere. And then you've got one on that side of the waterfront, and then you've got everything, of course, on the McCarroll Park and the Fred Raper Park side. So the need to have a third location within the harbor lands really probably isn't necessary.
Okay, and Victoria?
I just wanted to add that the concepts look wonderful, and I really like the suggestion of the community gardens, I think that brings in a lot of accountability and ownership for the community and residents to actually care for the space and help with the maintenance of it. So I think that's really wonderful. And I'd also like to echo Marissa's suggestion that there is a need for non-motorized boat storage in the municipality. We're a waterfront municipality, and there's nowhere anywhere here to store kayaks or canoes or stand-up paddleboards. So that would be really wonderful if we could incorporate it, whether it's here or elsewhere in our parks plan. But here would be great since all the other boats are here.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, are you, maybe Darcy or Margaret or Hannah, are we going to discuss it and make recommendations in terms of priorities, or are we going to table it for next time?
There really is no tabling it or expectation of tabling it at this stage of the game. The folks at Tatham and Envision Tatham are trying to move this forward.
Okay.
I would say that, like I said, the intention of this was to kind of give you guys a sneak peek of where some of the concerns were. I think realistically what Michael and David and their teams are looking for is based on some of the constraints that they've kind of outlined with regards to kind of hard property lines that, may have been not really considered in the original concept because it was very high level. They've had to make some adjustments to the overall design, especially on the parking side of things, and to accommodate boats with trailers and everything else. Does the committee think that they've generally hit the mark enough that they can keep moving forward, incorporating the comments that they're getting from all the community groups, and then have something that's still, some different concepts that are going to be reasonable to go to the public with through the PIC process? I think that's really what Michael and David are looking for. And if you guys need to say any more, if I've kind of missed the mark, then please feel free to.
Does that sound accurate, Michael and David?
Yes, I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Any thoughts, anybody, on, well, in terms of encroaching on private property, I mean, I'm sure you and the municipality will be speaking with them directly in some way anyway, right?
Yes, I mean, like there has to be a willing seller and a willing buyer, or some kind of an encroachment agreement, which I don't think anybody's going to really allow us to encroach on their property with a road. So it's about whether A, they want to sell it or not, and then B, whether the council is willing to enter into a sale agreement, and then C, what's the value of that land transaction and whether that's actually affordable or not. So I think, there's always potential, and realistically money talks quite often, but it's whether, all of those stars can line up or not. So I think Michael and David and their teams have done a pretty reasonable job in still maintaining the overall concept and expectations of the space, recognizing that we don't really have as much land to play with as was originally thought from 2014.
Okay. I'd also like to reach out and get feedback and thoughts from Steve and Harley, since I would imagine you have lots of experience in this regard, even Anna Lee, actually, with your background too. Steve?
Marissa, I really not going to give too much of a comment. This is such a preliminary stage.
Okay.
It's so preliminary, and the land acquisition has nothing to do with PAC, and we're going to have public consultation. So it's just way too early to get real deep into this, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Good point.
Yeah, if I may interject on that, I mean, I think we are working to refine these issues. I think we just really wanted this committee to be aware of some of the challenges and the slight deviations from the master plan. Again, going back to the fact that this was a publicly vetted process. Anytime we start kind of massaging and changing things, I mean, that's an expected part of this next phase for us. I think some of the changes are a little bit more substantial than we had originally anticipated as a result some of these property issues. So I think we just wanted to kind of make you aware of the extent of those changes. I mean, the parking lot is something we can refine. I think there's actually a lot of opportunities in this, in the sense we get to revisit. Even orient parking. You notice from the concept previously that the parking was oriented, partially to address the boat parking in the launch. But I think a portion of that parking lot needs to be oriented so the aisles direct towards the parkland, because I think half that parking lot usership is going to be for park users and nothing to do with the boating aspect of it, and vice versa. So I think we can use these constraints and have another go at the parking lot. So I think that's an easy one. I mean, we're staying outside of the properties along the waterfront. We are talking about acquisitions, the ones to the south. So I think all these are workable. We're just, again, I think it's just a matter of making you aware of some of the challenges we're going through and the solutions that we're exploring, and making sure that there isn't any overt objections to our approach at this stage before we continue on.
Okay, and just a quick question too, is the campground still going to be there for the trailers? Or they, or is that going to be turned into a parking lot?
The long-term concept plans show the removal of those sites.
Okay, all right. And I saw Harley, yes.
Thank you, Lady Chair. Yeah, it's good to know early in the game about this boundary situation. It's unfortunate that wasn't picked up upon a number of years ago when our first group of consultants were involved. But anyway, that's not a do-all and end-all. I'm sure people with the experience that the Tatham group has can make adjustments, and it might mean some condensing, some squeezing a bit, but I'm quite sure we've got a great piece of property down there, and we'll make whatever we need fit.
Sounds good. Annalie.
I do want to echo what Councillor Greenfield just said, and David, I think you said it best, that this is full of opportunity, and being in the initial phase right now, I think it's pretty exciting. Once you get into kind of the detailed planning, I think just on the topic of storage of vehicles, cycling, storage certainly is going to be needed in this area. And I'm just wondering, and maybe this is more for staff, but I might have missed it at the beginning of the presentation. Is this the first phase that we're looking at for the master plan implementation, or have other zones been looked at or planned for already?
Great question, Annalise. So through the chair, I mean, we've done some very basic work at David Johnson from the time that the original plan was put in place, just establishing kind of the parking and the beach area that's there, but that's it. Everything else, nothing else has happened at this stage of the game. And that's kind of, we went back to staff, we went to council during the 2021 budget process and said, like, we've got a plan that's been sitting around for a half a dozen years now, and nothing's happened. Simply because at the time in 2014, 2015, I think the thought was, well, we put a plan together now so that we can tell the private sector what the overall expectation is. And if we can get some private development and money flowing, then things can happen. And we kind of now realize the staff, we pitched to council that it's kind of a chicken and egg, and who's going to flinch first. And realistically, the municipality needs to get to a point where, if we believe that the harbor is one of our crown jewels, then we need to finalize the plan and actually start investing in it to make it happen, so that the public space realm elements, which is really what we're working on now, the green space, the pavilion area, and then the parking, that's going to be needed and desired by the public, irrespective of whether other development happens down there or what happens with the harbor. So that's why we've now focused on this for this year, and starting to try and get to detailed design so that we understand what's needed and then start to budget for it over the next few years.
Okay. Thanks, Darcy. Anyone else have any further comments or questions? Okay. On that note, I just wanted to thank you, Michael and David, for your time. And we are really, really excited to see this move forward and with the consultations. If there are people who are interested in speaking with you, because I know you mentioned you'll be speaking with stakeholder groups, how can they contact you? Or what's the best way?
I think we can certainly provide contact information back to Darcy, and perhaps you can disseminate it through to the committee, and we can proceed on that basis.
Okay. All right. On that note, thank you again. Excellent. And we will look forward to hearing more on this progress. Very exciting. And yes, I believe it's a crown jewel of Meaford.
Excellent. We look forward to returning with updates. Okay. Thanks very much.
It was nice meeting you all.
Okay. Next one. So we don't have any other presentations, questions, or deputations. Next on agenda is the approval of minutes from our last meeting on June 2nd. Has everyone had a chance to review that? And anyone have any questions or comments on the last meeting's minutes? I do. Surprise. This was just a little, I guess it was my misunderstanding in regards to the pump house motion. I was under the impression that we were actually, we had given the consent to proceed with the concept of the design based on the fact that we would be receiving more information on it, whether it's community input or a revised layout. But it's now my understanding that we've given consent to move forward, and therefore it goes to council for further review. We wouldn't receive any other information on that. Is that maybe Darcy, if you can clarify from our discussion earlier?
Yes, thanks, Marissa. I think maybe even the minutes are a little confusing as to what the expectation was. Margaret and I have talked about this. At the end of the day, what we were hoping to get, and I think maybe the minutes even should be changed to reflect this, is that the Parks Advisory Committee approve the concept and agree to allow or maybe Margaret can even step in because I know she's got the exact wording, but what we're looking for is to have approval for continued discussions with Longfield Farms on a public-private partnership. That's it. There's no finalization of what the design is going to be, where exactly it's going to be on the property or anything. Simply what we were looking for from the PAC was that you guys agree with the concept of a public-private partnership to allow this to go on the lands. And that's it. Nothing further, nothing about the design or how it's actually going to be accommodated on those lands and in the neighboring road allowances and so on and so forth. So Margaret, if you have the revision to what would kind of make this actually better, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you, Darcy. Just a motion that I had put together to sort of suggest to the committee instead was just that the Parks Advisory Committee support the concept of the public-private partnership with the Longfield Farms as proposed. So really, as Darcy said, the idea was sort of, yes, does the committee like it in theory, or no, should it stop here? And so I think just either support the concept of it or don't support the concept of it is as simple as it has to be. So I would recommend, just for clarity, if we could maybe just amend the minutes to have that clarity. I think it would be helpful going forward if that's the will of the committee.
So yeah, so further to your question then, Marissa, after we get through the hurdle of what the minutes should actually say, on a go forward, I think what I'd like to stress to the committee here is that I want you to think of what you've done as the first 10 meters of a 1 kilometer walk. All right, it was the most preliminary part of the whole process. Longfield Farms now has to go through a bunch of applications, not only municipally on the planning side of things, but also with the MOE and the Conservation Authority and so on and so forth, to even see if they can get approval to do this. And then if they can get approval to actually get a permit to take water and to do the construction, then they need to make an application to the municipality, because inevitably this is going to happen on municipal lands and use municipal road allowances. And from there, that whole process then has to become very public and transparent. So there will be public information centers where, the general, population and certainly, the neighborhood in that area can come out and can learn about it and understand what the process, is going to be. And then from there, after the PIC, council would then grant approval or not to actually finalize a public-private partnership. After that happens, final design would then occur on the pump house and the washroom facility, at which point it will then come back to PAC to get your rubber stamp on what the final approval and design will be on that building. So you'll still see it again, but like I said, this was the first 10 meters of a 1,000-meter run here. So they have a long way to go, and there will be general public input that happens potentially, because again, if they can't get permits to take water and they can't get approvals from conservation and the MOE, then it stops. And if they can't get approvals from the planning department and council to even go to the PIC, then it stops. So that there's a bunch of different things that have to happen here. I think Ian even mentioned at the meeting, their anticipation and expectation, hopefully, is to start construction sometime next year. So they know that they still have a lot of work to do, to get through all of this.
Okay. And I guess just so everyone gets the background, when I first read the minutes, it sounded like we endorsed the concept. So it has changed, and we'll finalize the wording. And I was very defensive of our committee, and I didn't want to look like we endorsed it without even full details. So I get nitpicky on languaging.
I think we had that discussion, Marissa. And so my thought was just the word support, the concept of it, I think maybe helps to clarify everything that the discussion was centered around, and finds a good wording that can be reflective of what the committee was doing, which was supporting the idea of this as it was presented. And then from here, it doesn't stop. It proceed and see where it goes. So that, again, I can read the suggested wording, and all we would do is just note in the minutes that the committee was comfortable with that, and then we'll just change it. But
okay, I'll just I would just want to bring everyone in together, and maybe it was just me. What was everyone's feedback? Am I making something out of nothing? Did you guys get the same thought that you were going to receive more information, or did you think you were actually just supporting making a decision on yay or nay on the public-private partnership? Any thoughts? Angela?
Yeah, my understanding was that we were supporting making a recommendation that the farmer could move forward with this concept happening on a very high level, but that PAC would be more heavily involved in getting more information throughout that process. But at that time, I didn't realize that they had to go through all this sort of long rigmarole with like the conservation and all of that kind of stuff. I didn't realize that was the whole, that was the process. My understanding was that the municipality would say yes or no, and then it would move, quickly from there. But I do agree with you, Marissa. I did think that it would move more in the direction of how you were explaining it.
Okay. Anyone else? So if the intent of last month's presentation was to vote, we made a motion to vote in support of the concept of the public-private partnership, do we all still agree on that vote and that motion? Yes, Steve.
No, I did not believe at any time we were given permission for anything. This was stage one, that we weren't 100% against the idea and they could advance and come back with something concrete that we could have a look at. That's how I felt. Is that the way it was, Darcy?
Sorry, that who would come back and take a look at?
Well, both PAC, council, staff, everybody.
Well, yeah,
There's so many hurdles to get over. We were just saying, go look at some of the hurdles and come back.
Yeah, that was my
Correct.
understanding too.
Yes, so that, as I explained, all of these processes that they're going to have to go through, the reality is that if the Parks Advisory Committee, and you guys really represent the community as a whole, right, and the voice of the community, if you felt that a public-private partnership and putting a pump house on this property was not a good idea, then that's where it stops. And there was no point in Longfield Farms trying to go through the application process with the Conservation Authority and the Ministry of Environment and doing high-level engineering and designs. Like, if the community didn't want a pump house / washroom facility there, then there was no point in them doing it anymore. So it was really just about, as Margaret said, endorsing the concept of a public-private partnership, and then Longfield Farms has to go through a very lengthy process to move this thing to actually get to 100%.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. Anyone else have any thoughts, feedback on what your initial impressions were when you voted on the motion? I almost feel like even Steve, it sounded like he had different expectations on what he was voting for. And I appreciate Darcy explaining the process, so it really does help. And I asked him to, because I actually approached this on later on, or shortly after the meeting when I saw the minutes. I don't know, should we vote again? Or are we, anyone thoughts? Steve?
No, I believe we should leave it as is. It's exactly what I thought it was on the last meeting.
Oh, okay.
This is just preliminary stage. It's just like Darcy said, it's the first 10 yards of a mile walk.
Okay. Is everyone okay with proceeding? So we are continuing the motion that we are supporting the concept of a public-private partnership. That is the revised wording. And then they will continue on meeting with the rest of the process. Okay, yes, Margaret.
Sorry, Marissa, all I would say is probably just for the knowledge of the committee, what we would do is just note that we had a discussion to clarify the recommendation or the motion in the minutes.
Okay.
And then that will be reflected. So
Okay.
see that when the minutes are published, that the wording will be slightly different, and that there will be some text that will just say, we clarified the motion after some discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Everyone good with that? Can I see hands up if you're all good with that? And can I have hands up if you're not good with that? Okay, no hands there. So I think everyone had their, oh, Alan.
Sorry, a question. Is this isn't approving the minutes, right? Just to clarify, Margaret?
Yeah, one item in the minutes.
That's correct, Alan. At this point, we're just discussing one of the motions. And actually, had it not been discussed, I would have also asked if we could just clarify the motion. It didn't read quite right. So we don't have a mover and a seconder yet for the motions to pass. So
I'm going to abstain from that because I was not at the last meeting, so I was not fully informed. I'm not fully informed on the discussion and the topic, so I'm just going to abstain from it.
Okay.
And those others who were present may wish to consider the same. I don't know how I can make a comment or even approve the minutes when I wasn't even there. So
thanks, Alan. Okay. So yes, Margaret, we're good to go with the, oh, Steve.
Bring a motion forward to accept the minutes as revised.
Okay, seconder. Angela. Okay, thank you. Minutes done. And items for consideration. This is exciting.
We just need the.
Marissa, I think you have to vote on that.
Oh, sorry. Here, I'm ready to go. And let's vote for accepting the minutes. I see all hands up, and Alan is abstaining. Okay, thank you so much. All passed. Next, items for consideration. The Sykes Street Bridge Parkette. This was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea. So, Darcy, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So what we're looking at here is a small stretch of property that most people probably simply know as the U-Haul parking lot, right beside Alex's gas bar. It is municipally owned property and has been for forever.
Wait, does everyone know where that is? Yeah, okay, good.
So as staff, we've had this crazy idea of actually using the property potentially downtown, especially given the park that was created beside the new library. We've actually used the same architectural design consultant and asked them to take some of the same concepts from the library side and move it over into this small piece, just so that it provides really good flow and continuity between the two properties. They came up with 3 different concepts just based on some feedback from the library staff and from municipal staff, just to kind of look at. I would say that, again, this is about making sure that the committee has an understanding of where we're going with some of these projects and making sure that the public is aware of them as well. We are looking for some feedback on the different designs as to what you like or don't like, just so that we can maybe kind of come up with a final design concept that could go to council for budget considerations. I would say that this is slightly different than normal processes, though, because one thing that we are going to do with this is we want to get to kind of a final design concept and then actually go to the gas bar, the property owner there, Alex, and offer him the ability to understand what it is that the municipality is potentially planning on doing. And then also extend the ability for the potential of him actually acquiring the lands if he wants to. So if the current property owner wants the land so that they can continue to use them, we'll then go back to council and say, you have a decision to make there, that you can either surplus the property and sell it, or we can retain the property and potentially develop it. If the gas bar owner does not want the property, then we can simply go to council and say, we want to make you aware that we own this property and here is a plan, and we'd like to endorse it for future budget cycles to potentially start to invest in it so that it creates a nice parkette space and has great flow on both sides of the bridge.
Okay. Alan.
Darcy, quick question. Is the current user, or AKA U-Haul lot, are they paying the municipality for the use of that property right at the moment?
We do not have a use agreement with the current owner.
Okay. Thank you.
1 second. Okay, so, sorry, I missed some. Did someone raise hands? So Steve, Harley, Barry, did you have a hand up? Okay, sorry, Steve and Harley.
Thank you, Marissa. Spent some time in the library Parkette last week. Beautiful job. It's wonderful. Design 2 and 3 here would more match it, but I like design one best in the Parkette theme. Thank you.
You like one. Okay. And Hartley.
Thanks, Marissa. And yes, quite a few people surprised about the ownership of this property next to the river. Well, first of all, it'd be great to have a parallel little parkette similar to the one at the public library. I think it would be just, you know, the two would go together like fresh baked bread and butter, or something like that.
Yeah.
It'd be great. It's really interesting. I always thought, actually, the original Esso gas station was kind of tucked up, at least towards the corner of this property. It may even have been on it. The building that is there right now was not the same one back in the 60s when some people were buying gas there. It's to me, it's a great heritage property. I'd like to see it stay within the municipality's hands. And other than Tom, I'll likely be the only one that remembers a resident of urban Meaford by the name of Andrew Gawley. And this property was actually the access to Andrew Gawley's shop back, again, this is 60 to 70 years ago. So now, again, Tom would only remember that from his father telling him about it. But, no, I think, I really think it'd be great. I'm not overwhelmed by any of the concepts, actually. I'd like to see more grass, a little less concrete or paving stones. And I'd like to see a row of trees between this property and the gas bar, really separating the two, because it'd be great to have it as private an area as possible from a retail business. Okay, I will digress. Thank you, Marissa.
Okay, thanks, Harley. Sorry, Darcy, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, Marissa, I did want to say one thing, that the intention, I guess I forgot to mention, the intention of number one, that design, having a little less green and a little more paving, was that there was some, thought brought forward about the fact that in the past we've had some street vendors, maple syrup folks, stuff like that, selling things. So if you had enough of a paved area in there, number one would at least accommodate a couple of those 10 by 10 vendor tents that you could set up. And, the library could almost be the landlord of that property, kind of funneling through different vendors on a week by week or like weekend, every Sunday kind of thing, a couple new vendors, and then there'd be enough space in there to accommodate a couple of 10 by 10 tents. I do understand what you're saying, Councillor Greenfield, about the trees. And I think especially with the concept number one, those small shrubs that were in the bottom right corner certainly could be extended further along the property line to try and give some more kind of delineation and separation between the properties. But these are definitely the things that we're looking for, these kinds of comments, so that we can take it back to the design consultant and get them to kind of come up with a final concept. Okay.
Yes, Alan. And then Victoria.
Marissa. Darcy, approximately how much size of the property is that? And do you have is it a market value been placed on it yet?
I do not have exact dimensions of the property off the top of my head, unfortunately, Alan. It's not huge by any means. It certainly wouldn't be a buildable lot or anything. It really is a matter of whether we retain it for a parkette or whether it becomes a lot addition to acts as gas bar. That's really the only two options. So based on that, the market value certainly wouldn't be super high, but we wouldn't even go out and bother to get a market evaluation unless council actually deems it to be a surplus property. And at that stage of the game, we go out and get it appraised.
Thank you.
Sorry, quick question, and then Victoria too. Is there a way to build or provide access to the water from here?
Unfortunately, I don't think that there is. It's fairly steep. I think anything that we would, try to do would either have to cut way back in, which would be probably almost impossible to get approval from Conservation Authority on, or it would be pretty dangerous. And then that's when my other hat on the risk management side of things would come into play, and I'd suggest that we not do something like that.
Okay. All right. And also, okay, Victoria first. Yeah.
Thanks, Marissa. I think in general that area is a really unfortunate entrance from the east into our downtown. So and not very inviting. So I think a parkette idea is really wonderful as a concept, and I fully support that. I agree with Harley's comments that it would be nice to have more green, especially being so close to the river. I would support maximizing softscaping and, to help with, the incremental or nominal amount of runoff that we can help mitigate into the river. And then in terms of the need for more paved area, I feel like that type of concept, if we're thinking of vendors, it's not necessarily like the best place for vendors, because then we'd have to think of parking in that area as well. But, ultimately, I think we should also be thinking that we have the market square just right where it belongs in the heart of downtown, where it is right now. So if we're thinking vendors, I think the vendors rightfully belong where Market Square is, which would sort of preclude the need for having more concrete areas in this parkette. The only other thing I would add is I would support, and sorry, as I was going through the agenda, I actually thought that the parkette concepts were part of the Waterfront presentation earlier. So my comment about concept 2 is the one that appeals most to me, as that includes the community gardens, and you're having public come in and actually take care of the space and have ownership over it. Thank you.
That's a good one. Angela, then Annalee, and I'm going to interject at some point too. Okay, Angela.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. So I really love the concept number 2. I agree with Victoria. This is a really warm, inviting kind of concept. I think the Gateway Arbor is really inviting, and I think the idea of having community gardens really wherever we can. There's a lot of demand for community style gardens in town, and I think that would make it a really functional and meaningful space as well. I apologize for my children screaming in the background, but I think that would make it a really meaningful space as well. And my only other comment would be, it'd be really nice to see a sort of a meditative space, maybe a labyrinth similar to what they have in Thornbury. I think would also be a very unique and meaningful space for the community as well.
Love that. Thank you. And Annalee.
I like all of the elements and all of the concepts, but I do want to flag a couple of things. So if we're looking at community gardens or plots, can we make sure that there's access to water somehow? That will be really key in making sure that's successful. And just with respect to concept number 1, I don't really love the rock seating as it's shown. It's not very accessible. I'd prefer to see more traditional seating options, whether it be the concrete bench, whether it be a bench, but just from an accessibility perspective, that's where my mind goes. And finally, last point, I think this is a great opportunity for the library to have a little space that they can program. So I am kind of on the fence between having a little bit more of a paved area versus grass area. Library can certainly do grass if they had a tent set up or something and had reading for children or something. So I would fully support that as an option if they are interested.
Yeah, I don't mind. I love all the concepts, and I'd love that staff and Darcy, you guys have created and found more green space for the municipality. And I agree with the comments of maybe having more trees and then to create a sort of buffer from the street side of things as well. I love the idea of community gardens, you know, less brick or stone walls, so less pavement. But what else was going to say too is I'm okay with, I like the thought of vendors. So at first, my first thought was vendors would be hard because they need a place to load and unload. So they need a place to park the car and it takes a few minutes and it could create a lineup and blocks. So, and then the only other way is to park somewhere else and then cart it over the bridge. But I think there's always opportunities for smaller type of vendors or little community gatherings there. So whether it's a little stage or like an extension of the library. So the library from the outside, inside out, so to speak. So you can have little group settings, whether, yeah, I think I like the overall concept. And I think with further discussions, it's just going to be like perfect. The only thing I was also looking at was the budget for all three concepts. So maybe we can find a way to, yeah, make it a little bit more budget friendly. So at this stage, what's happening? Are you going to do, I know you mentioned it briefly, but if you could remind me the stages in execution or any consultations, further consultations with the public?
Yeah, I guess Alan just had his hand up. So before I start, if he has something that he wanted to add in.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Darcy. Marissa, I'd just be concerned. There was concern about vendors and parking and unloading vehicles. So you do have the consideration if there's community gardens, you're going to have the same situation. So that should be thought about as well.
Okay. Good point. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think we looked at the budget and, you know, in all honesty, I wasn't surprised by it. You know, sometimes the scale of project doesn't always coincide with the budget. There are some constraints to the property that have to be dealt with, of course, with regards to, you know, the water management from stormwater management. The big thing though on this is about trying to do shoring to try and actually maximize the space and get it as close to the edge of the embankment as possible. And then in doing that, having to put the fencing up with the 4-foot sonotubes to make sure that there's adequate footings. And so no matter which of the three concepts we go with, you know, you're talking, you know, a large portion of that $80,000 to $100,000 are fixed costs no matter what concept we go with. If we just simply, you know, fence the property and throw grass seed down on it, you're probably still talking 75 or 80 grand, right? Because you still need to deal with all that same stormwater, you know, concrete fencing, so on and so forth. So it is what it is. And anything that's worthwhile doesn't come for free anyways. So, and this doesn't mean that we have to do this right now, but certainly it was fresh in our mind from staff's perspective and trying to get an extension, you know, of green space on the other side of the bridge. We thought was a pretty cool little idea if we could do it. And the consultant was readily available to whip a couple of these things together at a really inexpensive price for us to get it done. So, you know, the next phase for us really is maybe I'll take some of these comments back to the designer and get them to reflect on that, maybe come up with something that's more of a preferred concept. And then that way we can go to Alex's gas bar and say, this is potentially what the outcome could be. Do you want to be considered for the property sale or not? And then, like I said, if he does, we'll go to council and say, do you want to keep it or do you want to dispose of it? And if they want to keep it, then we can start planning through the next year or 2 years budget cycle to actually potentially get something done here.
Okay. Or maybe it's another public-private partnership. Hi, Harley.
Thanks. Through you, Marissa, to Darcy. By all means, we need to give Alex first chance at this. He has depended on that property for quite some time, and he needs some time to consider purchasing it. If indeed he decides not to, and the municipality decides to go ahead with the Parkette type idea, can development charges cover these expenses, or what would be a potential way of financing the development?
I guess it could. We're starting to run an extremely long list of development charge wishes for everything from St. Vincent Street, Legion. Of course, Center Street alone is, $1.5 million project, and then there's always playground equipment that we want to do expansions on, David Johnson Park, so on and so forth. So it's possible. I don't know where the funding envelope's going to land over the next 6 months as we do the DC background study update. It's something that we can certainly consider. This project actually might be, although we've pretty much exhausted the funds at this stage of the game, but using the Parkland Dedication Reserve Fund, we might be able to fund this through that over time.
Okay. All right. Any other discussions on this? Is there anything else you need from us, Darcy, at this point?
No, I think I got some great comments and feedback. Thank you very much, everybody. And, we'll keep this process moving now. And like I said, the next phase really is to engage with Alex and see what interest he has. And then we'll go to council. I would, fully assume that if council gets to the point where we keep the property and we're going to plan on developing it, we'll have some kind of formal public information process just to make sure that the final design, it's never going to be everything to everyone, and it's a small piece of property, so it can only do so much. But just to try and get that community buy-in with whatever kind of final design we're looking at.
Okay. And does Alex actually have any idea? Like, is there like an end date or any informal arrangement or touch base once a year on what's happening with that property, or is this going to be a total shock to him?
There isn't really a touch base. I mean, Alex is aware that we've been looking at this, and he knows that it's not his property, and that the municipality owns it. So I don't think it's going to be a shock. It's simply a matter of whether there's a desire for him to potentially purchase it to actually keep using it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And next item on the agenda that was exciting, and this one's equally exciting. I just want to give everyone a heads up. Darcy and Hannah have to leave. They have got another meeting and other engagements. So we would love to wrap up by 4:45, which is approximately half an hour. So I'm hoping this would be plenty of time for a discussion on the next item of the McCarroll Park Master Plan and the summary from community input. Hey, Rod.
Hi, guys. Awesome. Through Madam Chair, the PIC for the McCarroll Park was extremely successful. I am ecstatic actually about the comments that we've received back from everybody. As everyone's aware.
Kudos. Well done.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, public engagement sessions are extremely challenging nowadays with all the regulations that we're under. So, to make it as easy as possible for everybody to comment, I think we've done a pretty good job. So, again, I've provided just a quick summary of what we've got. We did some tracing through the communications department. So, right off the bat, we had over 4,800 people that are connected directly to our website, and over 2,500 of those people actually shared this program with other friends and stuff like that. So, we had looks like over 1,600 views on the YouTube channel of the video, and even the shortened video, and just the all the concepts that were out there, and we've received over 150 comments. So we as staff actually took all the comments and kind of developed them into each category, and then provided an other line just for people that were wanting concepts from kind of like both, they liked A, B, or C, or parts of A, parts of B, parts of C, and put it all together for the consultants. So anyway, I have now shipped all the information off to the consultant. They actually were very impressed with the comments. So now what happens is they will develop a plan, from the feedback from the people, and will provide us with a high-level costing of the vision of the municipality and the people using the park. So hopefully I have something back for our September meeting that I will be able to provide kind of a bit of a concept, final design, and hopefully an overview and pricing. So.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, no, it was pretty impressive with all the feedback. Anyone have any thoughts or comments? I don't know. So just so you know, for those watching, it was concept A that was very much high in demand and was leading the race, so to speak. But still lots of other great comments in all the concept designs. Anyone have any feedback? Yes, Angela.
Yeah, so I've read through all the comments, which I agree with. I've also read the comments on social media. I've talked to a lot of other parents as well. And I think really the general consensus is that people want this to be sort of the hub for parents, to take your kids. You've got shady areas for parents to sit, a nice big splash pad, a nice big playground. And this will be kind of like the main downtown attraction for families that are looking to get out of the house and have, kind of a fun place to go. So there's a lot of really good hype around this project, and I'm really, from a parent perspective, I'm really excited about it as well.
And a quick question, is the playground going to be put back at Fred Raper Beach?
As of right now, no, there's no intention. The
Okay.
water levels have went down a little bit, but they're still, well above average, and we just don't have enough space right now. So.
Okay. No, I just want to put that into perspective with all the with these concept designs. No, it's great. Okay, any other questions, comments? And yeah, no, it's exciting. I think that's it. Well, thank you, Rod. You were a superstar. And I think this engagement process is great. So hopefully, we'll continue with that. Definitely garnered a lot of input from the community.
Yeah, I just found it was easy access with the QR codes, and everyone's got an iPhone nowadays, and it was easy to jump on to actually have a look. So I think we've come up with a pretty good PIC process. So
awesome. Okay, well, I guess that wraps up that items for discussion. So thank you, Rod. And for next item, communications, none. And other than that, the date of our next meeting is September 1st. So we have a month off. Oh, Angela.
There we go. Sorry, just one quick thing, and I'm not sure when the appropriate time is to bring up this idea. Maybe Rod or Darcy might be the best to address this, but I've had a number of people in the public come to me about David Johnson Park and the walking trail through that forested area. Both sides are teeming with poison ivy. So I'm not sure what the best channel is to bring that to someone's attention, but I did say that I would bring it to someone's attention.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Yeah, we can address that. We normally address poison ivy out on the Georgian Trail, and I haven't noticed it down there. So we will have a professional company in to address it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Good point. And actually, good segue. Darcy or Margaret or Hannah, can we add a section to our agenda where it's other items that members might want to bring up, just like that topic? Or can we just mention whatever we want at the end?
I think I'll leave it up to Margaret or Hannah to discuss, but I know like with general council meetings, there's always a council inquiries section. You know, we could have a.
It was in the beginning.
Yeah, we can maybe include a committee inquiry or committee member inquiry.
Yeah.
But we'll see what we can do. Leave that with us, and what we can come up with. Typically, just for the public process, we like to be quite clear with what's on the agenda, so that there's some transparency there. But of course, the committee will have questions, and so we'll figure out how to integrate that in.
Okay, great. Thank you, Margaret. That would be much appreciated. And,
I think this, I could, through Marissa, I think this is a great opportunity for me to say that, you know, Rod and I have done an excellent job of making sure that the Parks Advisory Committee has had a full agenda and topics to deal with.
Thank you.
For the last close to a year now, because September will be a year cycle. There'll always be things to talk about, but I wouldn't want agendas to get thin either. So, you know, Angela's point about poison ivy is great just to bring up in these meetings. I mean, if anybody has things like this as well, you can always just email us if it's operational so we can get it done. It doesn't have to wait for a meeting like this. But if you do have topics that you actually want to talk about as committee members, I would suggest that you forward those on to Marissa, because Marissa and I always talk, you know, the week before we actually publish the agenda to make sure that we've got everything on there that we need to talk about. So if you have things that you want to talk about, make sure you forward it onto the chair, and then we can get it onto the agenda and go from there. So, you know, as a follow-up to that, at the next meeting, we already know for September 1st, we're going to be bringing a report forward to the committee on McCarroll Park. So we want you guys to actually see what the final outcome of this is going to look like, because the intention is to take a report to council in mid-September. So we want the Parks Advisory Committee to see it first, and then it'll go to council in mid-September. So, you know, all of those comments and the awesome public feedback that Rod was just talking about will be incorporated by the consultants into a final report, and you guys will get to see the draft of it first before it goes to council.
Okay, awesome. All right, anything else? Any other committee inquiries while we're here? Okay, I would like to make a little note. Oh, first of all, also, I don't know if you guys have noticed. So this is a new cup. It's amazing quality. No, it's not mine. I'm not pitching or selling anything. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's Memorial Park. It's beautiful. And you can get it at the park office. And yes, this is just water in here. But yeah, it's stunning. So good on for the marketing team for designing new merchandise to help generate revenue at the park, or really anywhere really for the municipality. I love it.
Yeah, and I certainly note, especially, you know, maybe for, you know, folks like Councillor Bartley or Mr. Bumstead, if you don't want a coffee mug, we also have beer koozies down there as well. So you can take them with you when you go camping.
There you go. There's something for everyone. And also All we need fishing rods now. Yes, Victoria.
I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been working on all these plans, like the waterfront plan and the that piece of land by Alex's. I think this shows like really great vision for the municipality, and especially in identifying things where there's opportunities as in the future, maybe that we don't even know about yet, with the waterfront plan of private properties that may be coming up, and how we can be incorporating that into our long-term vision for the community. So thank you so much for all that work.
Thank you. And wow, so we get a month off. And before, I just wanted to give congratulations to Angela for her new baby. So something looks different about her.
Thank you. Yes, I can reach my toes now, so it's a good start to my summer.
That's awesome. All right, so thanks everyone. Have enjoyed the rest of the summer and enjoy our sandy beaches with the water being low. And we'll see you September.
Thank you. Good night.
That's good.
Good night.
Thanks, Marissa.
Oh, meeting adjourned. Oh, sorry.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, sorry. Motion to adjourn. All hands vote. All hands opposed. Okay. All right. Enjoy. Go.